got y'all's on. You got the shortest shirt? Yeah. Anyway, this is my dad. He's going to be our special guest today. He's going to give us a little bit of a sermon that the Lord gave him. So, that being said.
Well, I don't know if it's a sermon more than a lesson. Basically, we had a men's class about a month ago. And I was asked to do a class, and then they canceled it. But it wasn't that they canceled the class. The guy that was doing it had something else he had to do. But anyway, basically, he asked me to do it. I asked the Lord to help me out. He did. He confirmed it through Brother Josh on one of his sermons that I was on the right track. They were talking about men of integrity and how important it is for people to hold on to their integrity and, reputation and such, and people of valor. And basically this just kind of went along with it. We were talking about virtues. And in Proverbs you can read a book that has the virtues of a good man, virtues of a good woman, that you're supposed to be good stewards of your money. If a wise man prepares their house, or the wise woman prepares their house for the winter, a wise man takes care of the family. There's several of them in there. I don't have them all memorized or anything like that, but the thing that stuck with me is that the virtues, a lot of people think, oh yeah, virtues are virtues, but until you put value to them, it's kind of like, okay, be good, do what you're supposed to. Well, when you give it value, then I thought, Lord, how am I going to give it value? Said by something you already know. And if you know my kids, you've probably heard them talking about me, keeping them up at night, talking about how Einstein said the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. Anyway, he told me, he said, why don't you talk about relate virtues, give it a value off of that. And I thought, hey, that's a pretty good idea. First, I'll go through the things, because at one time I studied from 6 and 63 securities license through a Smith Barney company that this was way back a couple decades ago. Anyway, they taught me a little bit about investing, and one of the virtues was being good stewards. So if I put the same investing wisdom to value wisdom, then it will kind of go through and explain itself when I get done. So say Uncle Bob mortgaged the house, bet the farm and everything on a little company called Enron. That would be totally foolish of Uncle Bob, because, his good old buddy told him that they have a hot new market right now. If you get in there and you buy into this Enron stock, you're going to make $1 million, and you're never going to have to plant another grain. You're never going to have to do anything to make it, And then what happened to Enron? Right down the toilet. So now anybody from Smith Barney, anybody from Lake Mason, anybody from Prudential, anybody from Edward Jones, who I'm currently with, any of those people that come up to this guy and says, hey, let me get you financially set, he's going to give them the old what for, because his Uncle Joe told him not to invest in nothing else because he knows about money. He lost his farm on all this money. That stock market was no good. But what he didn't tell him was that, yeah, if you invest in a stock, that's going to do that. But say he invested in Enron, say he invested in technology, say he invested in medicine, Say he invested in oil. Say he invested in gold. Say he invested in pewter. And he's got a lot more things that if one fell off, it's not going to kill him. That's what these people are there for doing. Because if you're not making money, they're not making money. And they make very little off of your off of your crop. So, it basically goes like this. They talk about buying low and selling high, but here's what normally happens. And I don't know, I'm not a very good freehand draft drawer, but you can get the point. Say you invest $100 a month. And say on it, you start buying right in the middle, so you got 4 shares. First month, 10 shares the second. Third month, it's doing really good. It's taking off, so you only get 2 shares there. Next month, it tanks. You're doing, it's like nothing. So you get 10 shares there. Next month it does the same thing, it's still low. Next month you're doing the same thing. And then the next month it peaks up at 2. 2 shares, because it's so high you can only buy 2 shares. Okay. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months at $100 is $600. And let's count your shares up here. 48, and that would be, 48 would be, hang on a minute, $2,400? $2,400 in 6 months, and it was down more than it was up. That's the power of compounded interest, because by the time you sell out, over time, you have your interest of what you're gaining versus that the percentage of that's going to probably go to your broker. But nevertheless, keep this graph in mind, because what I'm fixing to tell you is going to blow your mind, because it's going to be the same graph with different things, because I'm putting value to virtues. And I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't even know I could use this again until I was asking the Lord, hey, how am I going to use that? How am I going to present this? And said, well, everybody likes money. Everybody likes to be, everybody can relate things when you put it to them in a simple form. And it's kind of pretty cool. So say, that's kind of a small circle, but you remember this little guy? On the finance, it was Enron. But now, let's put it on emotion. If you run your entire life off emotion, you are going to mess yourself up. Because I've gotten now where I don't hardly have any feelings left, because I don't run my life off emotion. Okay, maybe that's a lie. Everybody's got emotion. We live off of it from time to time. It's not a smart thing to do. That's normally when we end up in a valley, is when we run off of emotion. But say you have emotions. Everybody's got them. So you have principles, okay? Then you have integrity. Put it on wisdom. Then tack on knowledge. Put on experience. And by the time you add all this together, you're not running off of one thing. You're well-rounded. Now, over time, just like before, here comes the mountain climb. You've got your peaks and valleys. This is what Brother Josh was talking to me about, that kind of, hey, that makes, is he listening in on my brain? No, that's the Lord talking to more than one person at a time. So each time, and the line in the middle represents your experience, and the hilltops is your glory to glory, and the valleys is your learning. The time that Josh says that you're on your face praying and you're crying to the Lord and Savior, and I know this for a fact because I've been there multiple times. I can't tell you everything on one hand that He has saved me from in my lifetime, because I could tell story after story after story where He's been there to help me out. But say you get up here about, say, 3 years into your Christianity, and you are up here on a mountaintop with somebody about 10 years, maybe in a low. It kind of puts them on the same level, except for this guy's got the experience all this time that he's been down these roads before. This ain't the first time they've been sad. This ain't the first time they've felt pain. This ain't the first time they've had loss. This ain't the first time they've, you know. So although this may be a peak for them, this guy with more experience may think, oh, this is worse than it looks. And this guy over here may be like, well, I'm fixing to show the world something, you know. It doesn't mean, it's kind of like what level are you, how much experience you have is how you handle it, how fast you get back down. Because I bet this guy with 10 years experience, he don't stay down that long. He knows how to pray. He knows He's Savior. He knows what's going to happen for him. When this one falls, this guy here is going to be about halfway in the middle again, and he'll be able to reach down and pick that person up and help them out. You can always learn from somebody. I learned from experience of once where I was talking about to God. I always talk to Him while I'm either at my machine or by myself somewhere. And I don't mean this is like, no, I'll lay me down to sleep. No, I mean, this is full on good friend conversation that nobody can, I mean, it's like, hey, you need to help me out here. I don't understand what's going on. And he'll tell me, hey, you know, this or that or whatever. And how he normally tells me is by mistakes I've made in the past. He'll be like, remember when you did this? And I'll be like, I thought we forgot all about that. He'd say, well, yeah, but you can learn from that now. Why you went through it is because you're going to need to know. So, you know, I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah. Wow, you know, basically your virtues, they're in Proverbs. They'll tell you how you're supposed to live, how you're supposed to do things, keep your integrity, you know, keep your stuff going. And like my son says, iron rubs iron, like a friend sharpens a friend, like iron sharpens iron. I guess I kind of messed that one up, but you got the gist of it anyhow.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why the Bible says that we should not neglect the gathering of the church, because when we're all together, we all learn something. You never know, something that you've already learned might help somebody else climb up an experience. Yeah,
well, that's kind of like I'll never forget the first time we went to this church we were going to. We just thought, you know what? It's a revival. We'll check it out. We'll see what they had to say. And the first thing they had to say, it was like, I remember standing in the pantry and I'm thinking, you know, Lord, don't just make this a normal sermon. We don't get out and go on a limb very often. Make this something we need to hear. And bam! There it was. They didn't know us from Adam. They didn't tell us anything everything they had was food for the soul. Yeah. And then we thought, man, I've caught fire. We got to take this back and put it in our church. Because at that time it was like, oh, you know, you don't want to jump around a lot, because by the time you jump around, That's nobody.
Right.
You know, you're not.
And that being said, he's not like me taking a fire from a living church and bringing it into
No.
It was just kind of a slow one.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't.
It wasn't very.
There's nothing. There's nothing wrong with the one we came from. It was just that fire, you know, that you feel. There, if you don't know,
Our old church was kind of like an old school, drink your coffee in the morning, kind of Jesus crazy.
well,
The church we're going to now is enthusiastic.
slap your grandma, make her go down front. She
This
needs,
is like-
you know.
This is like habanero waking your eyes up.
The different, yeah, that's a good one. A pepper analogy. You can do. Hang on now. You can do jalapenos, which is hot, or you can do habaneros, which is really hot. But you know,
Really,
yeah. Well, we ain't going that far.
I
But basically, if you have, back to my point, we kind of got off track here a little bit. That's all right. If you've got all these values together, all these virtues, and you add value to them, by the time you get up here in age and your experience, you're closer to God through all your valleys, all your trials, all your glories. And basically, it's not one thing. One thing is not the key. Kind of like you in your real estate. I mean, yeah, you've helped several families find homes. You've helped several families out of their old homes. And these people that you've helped, they have no idea that they take that same help you gave to them and put a Dickey's barbecue right downtown, or put Home Depot. He is commercial licensed. If you didn't know, he is a realtor.
I do both residential and commercial, but anyway.
But he can, you know, they don't realize that.
Right.
You could put a garage in. You could put a Taste of Soul egg rolls, or you could put a.
Shout out to all these places, by the way.
You know, if you wanted to put a Target,
Nothing.
or you want to put, okay, I don't know. I'm just saying names because of companies that, you know, he could help if they would be interested in it, you know. If you want, you know, if you have a dream of a profession that you need a piece of real estate for, you need to talk to this guy right here because he can hook you up. But if you just sold houses, my point being, if you only sold houses, you would turn down that whole commercial side of the real estate business.
Right.
You would lose half of your business.
And have all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Or say you didn't want to help everybody. You just wanted to help the richest 2% of the people.
Right.
You would be cutting your own nose off to spite your face because there was way more
Right.
of everybody else than there is the Rockefellers or the.
And I can see where, in a biblical aspect, this could be a huge issue because if you're only focusing after a certain group of people, I forget
Mhm.
who it was, but he was the evangelist that came by not too long ago. He was talking about how most churches go after people who are already Christian, trying to
Right.
bring them in. But what
Right.
we need to be doing is spreading it to people who aren't currently Christian.
That's how Brother Jonathan said when he says, we don't want the rich and famous. We want the stinky, we want the addicted, we want the people that we can help. Yeah, they're still welcome to come. He said everybody's welcome in God's house. But what Jonathan was saying is they didn't want people that play church. He wants to bring in people that actually want an experience. And I think that was pretty that's pretty commendable as far as I'm concerned.
Right. As most of these people who are down on their luck, they don't get talked to about the gospel. And that's kind of what I was hoping for that one VBS that me, Michelle, and Brandon's family did when we all went to the park to go street preach because nobody showed up.
Oh yeah,
I was kind of hoping we reached somebody at least.
yeah. Yeah, we've had, man, I can't tell you the times that you kind of get, how many valleys that you've got to go through. Me and your mom's been through like 30 years of uphills and downhills. And I tell you right now, if I got anybody, my first phone call is to her. Well, outside of the Lord, my first phone call is to her because she is, I mean, she's been up and down these hills with me, you know? And
she's got the memory of
oh
a
yeah,
Nikon camera.
but yeah, this basically, you know, by adding value, by adding more things to what we're doing, it's kind of like a church where they're saying, hey, if you have, you know, if you don't like, what was it he said? If you don't like, there was something he said over there, and I thought, oh, I'm not ever going to forget that. And here we are on a live stream, and I forgot what he said. But he was saying something about somebody is always praying. I think it was Brother Stephen said somebody is always praying for somebody to come and help their brother, their sister, their nephew, or something. And I think it was when his buddy passed away that he had to bury his buddy, and that hurt him because they'd been best friends for so long. And he said, you know, when everybody passes them up on the street and they're like, oh well, you know,
Yeah.
that person means something to somebody.
Right.
And, you know, I thought it was pretty cool because we don't just take in our church, we don't just take the rich and famous, we take a little bit of everybody. And
the way
give
I
them
look at it,
opportunity.
the way I look at it is, if you're focusing only on church people, there is no spirit of empathy or no spirit of like wanting to do good for the entire community because there's more than just church people.
Oh, that reminds me of
It's
something.
like if you're only targeting people who are already Christians, there is nobody being led to Christ.
Yeah. That's like when Jesus said, if you're only helping those that help you, what reward is there in that?
Right.
Yeah. Well, man, I think that's about all I had. If you got any questions for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. I don't sound like I'm proud of myself.
Do you think, as a country, obviously we've already talked about this a little bit, do you think we're more focused inwardly than outwardly as far as spreading the gospel? Because I know a lot of people, they seem to be too cowardly to talk about it in public.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I have pulled people off to the side out of just that person is going through something, and I'll ask them, "Hey, do you need prayer?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, sure." You know, I'm gonna take them off and pray for them. Especially, and I've bought coffee for officers, soldiers. They'll be in there in a 7-Eleven or something, and they'll want a coffee or something like that, and they'll be up there to the deal. They'll be camp change, and I say, add that to my bill. And they say, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, put it on my bill. And I'm not saying that to brag or nothing. Hopefully, I get more people to do something like that because, you know, they're the Lord puts it on your heart to do something, get up and do it, and make a difference in somebody else's life. They might be needing that for gas down the road or something. You know, they don't. But
Yeah. Also, I saw this on TikTok, and it's kind of a funny question. If I had a quarter, actually, I better scrap that one because that's way too controversial. If I had $1 for every God, how much money would I have?
$1.
$1.
That's right.
I got one more silver dollar. Alright. Well, thank you for being on the show, and if you got anything else you want to say?
You can always visit the church at Restoration PCG there in Shawnee, Oklahoma. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. And I hope I helped anybody with anything that they may be thinking about or going through or whatever. And if you need if you need a good home church, that would be a pretty good one to go to.
We just had the pastor appreciation dinner today.
Oh yeah, we did. We had, man, I tell you what, I don't know if they bought it or they made it, but either way, it was really good. And
that's big right for a fat boy son.
I know it. But and if you have any commercial or residential real estate out there, I know this is not what this podcast is about, but
that'll be another podcast.
that will be your other podcast. That's right.
I will say, if you're looking for a fun, Christian-friendly event for the kiddos on Halloween, we got a trunk or treat. I believe it's on Halloween, right?
Yeah, Halloween Day.
From like, I think it's like 4 or 5, 6, somewhere around there. I know it's a 3-hour gap there, but.
You know the actual physical address?
Yes, it's 1102 North Center.
1102. I thought that was it.
I'm the sound guy, so I better know the address.
But anyway, give it a try.
Remember to sharpen those swords. Put on your whole armor of God. That's the only way we're gonna make it through it. God bless y'all, and y'all take care.